Good Saturday afternoon, and I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful, wonderful weekend. I greet you with love and blessings from the infinite creator. My heart, soul, and soul heart to yours. I bring you joy, love, happiness, and I hope it rubs off on you. So, with that, little impromptu thing today, I'm your intrepid host, Mr. David Null, also known as AKA Hawkeye Two Feathers. And if you've noticed my previous videos before, that I've had some sightings down here in the last 10 days of, and I wished I had pictures of things that I consider being a UFO because it's very unnatural. Now, the two that I saw were right at about 7:30 in the morning time, Eastern Daylight Time. One was to the northeast, one was to the south of me. Another one was, and the one this morning was at about 5 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time because I was outside checking the meteor shower. And it was lousy last night, let me tell you. The night before, I seen seven really, really good meteors within 30 minutes. Last night, I was outside in and out. The skeeters got bad. So I'd go out for 20, 30, 40 minutes and I'd come back in, I'd go back out. And so, anyway, and there was also a haze early on in the evening. But about 5 o'clock this morning, when I went out to check meteors, see how the sky was doing and everything, I seen the Pleiades is way up in the sky. So our fall lineup of constellations rising in the eastern sky. We're here. And from my location, I could almost see Orion coming up. Now to the UFO. I was walking back towards the house after looking up at mostly the northwest and straight overhead, some to the north. I mean, west sky, because I've got a better view in one portion of my yard. Anyway, so as I'm walking back to the house, I look up and there is a cluster of stars just below the Milky Way belt. And I seen the star pulsating. I mean, like, woo, 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 in and out. And sometimes you see those, and it's like, oh, the in astronomical terms, they're called a variable star. Now, ET has said over the years that those variable stars may very well be a spaceship. And anyway, okay, fine. So I'm like, because there's sometimes these stars just they don't just twinkle, they vibrate, they pulsate, and it's like, okay. Well, anyway, so I'm looking for meteors. I'm not looking for UFOs, but because it's a dark time and it's hard to tell. But this pulsating light, like it was about, when you're looking up at the sky, the lower half of the Milky Way galaxy, just down a little bit, star here, and this pulsating thing in and out. And I was like, well, that's just really strange. So as I looked at it, it lit up really bright and started moving. And I was like, oh, crap. Where's the camera? But I couldn't have focused on it. It was way up there. But it went from being just kind of dim and pulsating to very bright, and the pulsating stopped. And so I'm like 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. I'm counting in my head. How long can I see this thing? And it travels about, if you could hold your fingers up to the sky, it traveled about that far in the sky. Okay, just hold your hands out like that. And that's pretty good distance up yonder. And it was way up there. Now, as I'm watching this blinking, I also see an airplane more off to my left-hand side, but it's got its normal blinking lights, and it looks like an airplane. Now, this white thing, it's still within view because I can still see it. Now I'm tracking it, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. Now, I have seen airplanes way up high in the sky, not as high as this one this morning, turn their wing lights on, their headlights. Why? I have no idea. And I thought, well, maybe that was this instance. However, the airplane that was traveling towards Jacksonville on a trajectory for my position all its lights, its wing lights, everything was blinky, blinky. Hi, how you doing? But this other one just stayed on. And usually you can see one other light, even if it is their floodlights or their headlights on the airplanes. You can still see one of the other lights. There was no other light. So at about the count of 10, this thing it was moving along just fine, real bright, no pulsation. And it was like, it just went and disappeared. The light didn't go off. It didn't blink off, but it was like, it went into it was like it went into an invisible cloud. There were no clouds in the sky early this morning down here in South Georgia. And so I'm looking up there and I'm going, where did it go? I mean, it was like there, and it was like it seriously went into an invisible envelope, and it almost became point shaped. It didn't just dim as a circle, which was kind of odd, but it's almost like watching the Star Trek thing where you see the Star Trek, the Enterprise is starting to zoom off and it leaves that little wake behind it. It was very similar to that, but small in the sky in comparison. So I'm like, wow, now that was just really weird. So, but anyway, so there's stuff in the sky, and I know it wasn't an airplane. It wasn't any other, it wasn't a meteor, because it was like moving really nice and slow. I mean, when you go 1001, 1002, 1003, you're watching for a pretty decent amount of time. It didn't just blink on and then go off. But then I turned my attention, and I kept an eye on that spot because I wanted to track the airplane. And I looked at it, and I was like, whatever it was that I saw, it was higher than the airplane was that I was watching flying towards Jacksonville. I seriously doubt that it was headed to Miami, but it was just its trajectory. So it was headed towards Jacksonville. And I watched it blink in, and I noticed that, the different colored lights and how clear it was. And so my mind is observing a real airplane to the left of what I noticed as this bright ball. Okay, there you go. My point, and why am I pointing this out, and I've seen some of these things before, because I'm just documenting that there's activity that can be seen from down here in South Georgia, North Florida, Middle Georgia. There's stuff going on. Y'all just need to go outside and pay attention and look around. There's stuff out there, Okay, next part of the topic. The meteor shower last night was horrible. I hope tonight's better. Oh, tonight's supposed to be the peak. Well, there's usually 2 or 3 days before and after the peak time. Now, let's see. Today's the 11th. But okay, so new moon is today. Tomorrow's supposed to be the peak. And then tomorrow is Sunday, Monday. So up until about Wednesday of next week, we're still in this little window of opportunity. Now, I was very disappointed this morning and last night and this morning, because I went out, I don't know, about 1 o'clock, watched for a while, nothing. Went out about 3 o'clock, watched for 30, 40 minutes. Skeeters drove me in. Nothing. I went out again this morning at about 4:30-ish. Now, I noted the 5 o'clock thing with the UFO. That was something that I noticed at the time. And because I came in to check the time, and then I walked back out anyway. So I wanted to note the time on that. But anyway, but I saw only one tiny little bleeper that was any kind of meteor last night or early this morning. Nothing. Now, Thursday night, I went out several times, and I mean, there was one that shot about half of the distance of my sky view, okay? And it was burning green and red and yellow, and I mean, I guess you could, there wasn't a sound to it, but it was very close to being a bolide type thing. It just screaming across the sky. And like I say, in about 40 minutes worth of sky watching Thursday night, I've seen 10. And 7 of them were really good ones. I mean, like when you look up in the sky hold your hands out and they're longer than a foot or 16 inches long. That's a good one. Lots of little jits that when you hold your hand out up to the sky, they're only like this long. So very disappointed on Friday night, early this morning on Saturday about the meteors. Won't try again. Hope that the sky is fairly clear. Now to other cosmic updates. I've been discussing certain things about the Earth and the earthquakes and stuff like that. And it's very interesting that topics that I've have discussed previously are coming out on other channels. Now, I want to say right off the bat, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back with this. Ain't what I'm doing with this. Trust me, I'm saying that I'm getting a confirmation and verification of the things that I'm feeling, seeing, being revealed to me with the great unveiling that's going on right now. So this isn't about whether or not Dave's being accurate or whatever, but at the same time it is. I want to say that, yeah, when I spoke about the kaleidoscope, lots of people have been discussing about the timelines, and the timelines are being mended. They're back on track. This Lionsgate that happened the other day, a lot of people were affected by the energy that went on, Kundalini things, spiritual stuff. I know I had, when I did my video on it, there was this tingling type sensation that was absolutely undescribable. And so, or indescribable, maybe I should say. Very hard to try to explain. So we've got a lot of incoming things, meaning energies, not from the sun, but from the direction of the sun. Now remember, the sun is pulling us along and we're following along behind. Now, one of the other things that got brought out, and it's true, the earth is more wobbly right now. And I was trying to get a good bead on where the North Pole is from my location. And it's way too high in the sky. I've been complaining about this for years, you know. Where I view the North Star from my location, it's about 20 degrees too high in the sky. Way too high. When I'm looking out at the North Star, I should be able to see it at about 30 or 35 degrees above the horizon. I'm watching it now. It's easy 50 degrees above the horizon. Way too high. So that means the south is rolled north. Now, what's with all this other kind of stuff? Well, how come it's hotter in Canada than it is down here in South Georgia? That's an interesting point. We have gotten more rain in these last few weeks, actually the last several months actually, than I've gotten in 5-year totals. Now, last night it was raining. I was going to do a little video, a Friday night, how you all doing kind of thing. And we had a thunderstorm that was just like frog strangler. Yep, frog strangler. Big front come across all the way from Mississippi, Alabama, and across right through Georgia, northern Florida, and all of that. Big thunderstorms last night. A lot of rain. Haven't checked the rain gauge yet. But the night before we had a substantial rain, and it was 2.7 inches in one rain shower. Now, several days earlier, I checked the rain gauge and there was 4 inches in it. But now that was about a week's total. We had off and on rains for several days. I didn't go out in the garden and check it. I just left it. So, but my point to that is that we had 4 inches in about 6 days. One rainstorm dumped 2.7, almost 3 inches. So that's 7 inches of rain, roughly, almost, in 2 weeks. Now, I figured that when I went to the store last night and checked off the bridge on the Little Ochlockonee River there, I figured, man, 7 inches of rain in less than 10 days, the river ought to be flowing. It's not. I don't know where this water's going. I mean, usually some of it runs off when it rains that hard, you know, and I've got areas here, but it's not reaching the river, which is real interesting. Now, I know that the earth is parched. I know the earth is dry, But at the same time, we're talking about 7 inches of rain in less than 10 days being sucked down into the ground. I mean, that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. We're recharging, but where it's different from my location, because if I had 7 inches of rain in 2 weeks, in less than, well, actually, it's been less than 10 days. So in less than 10 days, 7 inches of rain, I should be able to float my canoe in my backyard. That's how it used to be. But see, back then, the wetland in my backyard stayed actually wet, soggy in places, had little spots that were water congregated and would stay almost year round. And so it's like, we haven't had that in I've been complaining about this for the last 5 years. So, but even with all of this rain, when I stopped at the bridge, it was still drizzling on me. I lean over, shine my flashlight down to the footing of the bridge, and it is just above the lower portion of the pylons, which is not very deep. I mean, the bottom pylons are like drought. So all this rain has not even affected the river in my backyard yet. All this water is being sucked into Mother Earth. I mean, it's really uncanny as to, the fact that this water is being absorbed. I mean, because I live on a clay hill, and I mean Georgia red clay pack kind of dirt. And clay doesn't absorb real good. It usually runs right off. So when I went up the driveway, I'm thinking, oh, I've had all this rain. I've had a flat tire for over a week now. So I haven't been away from the house, even up the driveway. So, but as I'm driving up the driveway, which usually that much rain, a 3-inch rain in one day, 2.5 inches, 2.7, would have washed down my clay driveway. It's not. And it's like, but I mean, it feels like even the clay is absorbing water. Okay, it's just a strange observation, but right now I should be able to take my kayak and walk about 50 feet in the backyard because of this current rain and the rain we had last night. I haven't checked the gauge last night. So there's another at least an inch of rain, I would bet, in that rain gauge. So easily 8 inches of rain in 10 days. And it's not even soggy back where it should be a swamp. Wow. Okay. Now, the cosmic stuff. The energy's coming in. As I always say, I always try to get 2 or 3 other confirmations from several other sites and people that I really trust. And the reason I trust them is that the information that has been given, shared, or whatever over the years has proven more true than anybody else, kind of thing. And it's like, for example, I'm not going to name drop, but there are some big names in this, I say the light worker community, some very big names for having issues, spiritual warfare. Well, it's not really spiritual. Psychic attacks, energy attacks. Hands down, people are getting sick and in some cases dying because it creates heart palpitations. And it's like, oh, holy cremoli, right? Right. So, in my discussion last week about anxiety, 2 out of the 4 channels that I usually check with have brought up this anxiety. And the anxiety level is much higher now because of all these resonances coming in, and people don't know how to work with them. And that we had a spike on the Schumann resonance about 6 hours ago, a pretty decent one, and it lasted for several hours. And so when you look at the Schumann chart, you can tell that every hour we're getting a spike. Some of the spikes last longer, but you can tell that the Earth is getting almost a constant bombardment of something hitting the atmosphere, which is doing things to Mother Earth. She's expanding, the volcanoes are expanding, and the earthquakes are moving around. So, but this is normal because of our situation with everything in the cosmos. Like I've described, and other people have too, that all of the planets are on one side of the sun right now. They're not lined up directly, but the sun is being lopsided because all of the planets are on one side. So, you know, just take a circle and draw a line and everything's on one side of it. It's that simple. And in a few weeks, Mercury, being the closest to the sun, will pop out, and then Venus, and then the Earth will pop out. But there's still going to be a huge imbalance because the smaller planets, the inner planets, are going to be on the other side, while the big giant planets are still going to be on one side of the sun. So it's going to create an imbalance in the solar system magnetically, energetically, and just stuff in general. Okay. Magnetism, gravity, just all of that above. So we need to be aware of that, but not scared of that. There's going to be weird weather anomalies, like down here in South Georgia, you know, 7 inches of let's see, well, actually 8 inches of rain in 10 days and no flooding. Holy moly. That's how dry it is. But also, they're starting their spraying down here in South Georgia with the stratospheric aerosol injection, as a lot of people know as a chemtrail. And you say, well, Dave, how do you know it's a chemtrail? Because when the cloud looks like this and is spirally across the sky and it disperses out this way, and you can literally see things falling from the cloud, stratospheric aerosol injection, my friend. Well, I haven't seen anything in the afternoons. And I've even remarked, like, you know, we've had really blue skies here recently. Now, as I go out in the early morning now to check the stars and check the meteors and moon and do my normal stuff that I do in checking, I'm noticing that they're, you know, at 5 o'clock. Okay, let's say I go out at 4:30. The sky will be clear for summertime down here. There's always a haze in the sky in the summertime. But anyway, has to do with humidity, blah, blah, blah. So, but then I go out, you know, 45 minutes later, check the stars, check the thing, and I can't see a blooming star. They're like gone. Now, I don't know what they're using for dispersal, but this stuff goes wacko quickly. And I don't know who's spraying it. I've not been able to see an airplane. Now, the other morning, I was cursing the chemtrail when I saw that my second UFO for this 10-day period. And I was like, oh, holy crap. And it was above the chemtrail. And I don't know, maybe they were trying to stop it because the chemtrail stopped about where this big object was floating in the sky. So I'm like, oh, holy crap. You know, I mean, I can easily see it through my window here, you know, just for the hell of it. See, these are my windows. So I can clearly see, you know, outside when I'm at the right angle. All right. So that's my south facing windows. I live in a passive solar house that I built myself. Well, with help from others, but a lot of it was just me. And so, you know, when I say I can look out the window, there's 2 or 3 or 4 different windows there. I can see right out, or I can move easily and then see, but to my point. So, the energy's coming in. Now, as I was out earlier this evening, last night, Friday night, early Saturday morning, about 3:30-ish, about there, the sky's dark. But around the horizon, it's like way too light. There's too much light on the horizon for there not to be any sun, moon, whatever. It's just a weird coincidence. And I live out here in the country. I mean, it's 15 miles to the nearest small city. Now, Meigs is a really, really small little town, and there's not much lights that reflect off of the sky. A mile away from Meigs, you can't tell that there are lights on in Meigs. But anyway, Moultrie, Thomasville, even Coolidge sometimes, which is on 319 between Moultrie and Thomasville. And I've been here for 36 years. All right. So when I'm saying I can look at the sky and I see certain things, I've observed a lot of stuff, but I'm usually able to say, well, that's an airplane or that's that, blah, blah, blah. When I come out here and I start talking about when I see a UFO, I know what I saw, and I wished I had a picture, but I don't. So, but I'm saying this not for my benefit, but for you. Go outside and watch your skies. That's what I'm saying. If I can see it down here with my naked eye and just a little bit of simple observation, you should be able to see what's going on up there too. Now, I call this the galactic message versus something else. There was supposed to have been a catastrophic sun flash. Now, there still probably will be some solar flares and flashes and CMEs, which is coronal mass ejection, CME, coronal mass ejection. It's just when the sun throws out a lick of light, out into space. Our biggest issue is what's coming from the center of the galaxy out towards us. And we are sort of in the middle of one of these waves right now. This is like there's a bigger wave out yonder in the ocean coming towards us, but we're kind of getting into some choppy weather right now, thinking of being in a boat on the ocean. All right, so the water's starting to get a little choppy right now. So a lot of folks are going bat crap cray cray. And I mean, there are some folks who I thought, they had some sanity about them, but these energies are affecting them in such a way that it's actually lowering their vibration even more, which is like, whoa, it's just weird. I don't know how else, but it's just weird. So, the Galactics have said that, and the 12 new moons around Jupiter. Just interesting. How did 12 more moons appear around Jupiter? Oh, well, we picked them up going through the universe. Well, that must mean there's some honking big things out there. Now, and I keep saying, the Galactics have said they're using Jupiter and Saturn and all the major gas giant planets out yonder as staging areas. Well, now they've found out on the edge of, our solar system, there's a great big giant, some kind of cloud out there now. All right. Well, it's because we're moving through the galaxy, and the galaxy is moving through the universe. We're never in the same spot twice. So understand that. Now, they have said, and it looks like it's true, yes, the earthquakes are going to continue and increase, but they're going to increase so that there isn't a major earth cataclysm, one huge event. So if you live near a volcano or even a dormant one, I had no idea how many dormant volcanoes are up and down the West Coast. And no wonder when Casey said, that California would slip into the ocean. It's like there are parts of California that are at a lower elevation than I am here in South Georgia. So if the water were to rise, that whole San Bernardino County and the big valley, it's closer to sea level than I am here in South Georgia. So it's very possible that's why Creator Spirit has kept me here on this place, because my elevation is almost 300 feet here Now around the corner up there, it's 320. But anyway, so I live on not a high altitude, but a lot higher than this area down here in South Georgia, North Florida, etc. Anywho, so but my point to that is that I had no idea how many volcanoes were on the West Coast. I mean, the towards New Mexico and even West Texas. I mean, they're scattered all up and down there. So if you live near one of these things and you've been feeling tremors or something, be aware, because there was a sleeping volcano in Russia that just went off, and the one down in Guatemala went off again. The one in Mexico City has been spewing. And so these are the ones on our side of the thing. But here's what's interesting. There are a lot of funeral events that there's some strange stuff happening in the Caribbean. And that's part of the, well, it's not part of the Ring of Fire per se, but there's a lot of activity that runs through on the top of South America and Venezuela and over to the islands all up along. There's a lot, Puerto Rico, Haiti, the smaller islands along in there, lots of earthquake activity. They have 10 or 15 of them a day. And I'm talking in 2 and 3s area. And a magnitude 3 is going to shake the windows in your house. It is, especially if you're living on an island. So, but with that said, so there's a lot of activity going on, big time. So be aware of where you are, be aware around the oceans, because if the ocean hiccups because of an underground tremor or some type of activity, we have been warned again that there is going to be another earthquake in the middle of the Gulf somewhere. All right. Just be aware, because the plate pressure from the Ring of Fire, when it hits the west coast of the United States, the energy doesn't stop there. It still is going to travel eastward towards the mid-Atlantic ridge. That's where it stops. The mid-Atlantic ridge is literally a trench in the ocean, and pressure comes this way and pressure comes this way. But it rarely, if ever, transfers across the mid-Atlantic ridge, versus what happens around the Ring of Fire and the Pacific. So that's important. But anyway, maybe you're going on vacation. Maybe you're going to pay attention to where you're going. Okay. Now, next other thing, this Saharan dust that's coming up. I mean, it's covering the Gulf of Mexico right now. This is insanity. And it looks like it is the dust. Now, there are a lot of us that are like scratching our heads thinking it's coming off of the Sahara Desert. This is tons and tons and tons of dirt. Wouldn't there be like giant holes in the Sahara Desert? I mean, with the amount of dirt that's coming off of the desert over there in Africa, they should be getting down to bedrock soon. Just saying. And there's even more on the way. So it's like, this ain't over yet. Okay, just a curiosity. Now, there's been a lot of algae blooms and the red tide. And I grew up down in Florida, and I was in jail one time. Yeah, I was in jail at least one time. And at the time, we had a red tide that moved into Tampa Bay. And part of my job as a trustee there at the county jail in Hillsborough County in Tampa was to shovel dead fish into front end loaders. And oh my God, the fish, the stench, you got it. Especially after laying on the beach for a couple of days in the hot sun in the middle of summer. So, but the red tide only came through every once in a while. Now the red tide is like all the time. And also the seaweeds washing up into the other things and blah, blah, blah. Now, I've mentioned this before, and I will bring this to your attention again. the amount of Corexit that they used during the BP oil spill has slowed the Gulf Stream of the Gulf of Mexico itself. It has slowed the entire mechanism of the ocean. And in doing so, it's not getting oxygenated as it used to. Also, what that Corexit did was it submerged the oil until it reached a certain thermocline in the ocean so people couldn't see it. It just sunk it down, okay? It didn't get rid of it. It didn't disperse it. It just made it sink from the top of the ocean lower. And the Corexit itself, the amount of a bunch was used to fix this. That is having a huge effect on the marine life, the dead dolphins. So as the sun heats up the Gulf of Mexico, it's heating up the chemicals that are already there. So as this chemical chain reaction is happening, it's having an effect on the miniature minor organisms and subcultures in the ocean, along the beaches and in the marshlands. It's having a huge effect. Okay. And now some of this is getting out into the Gulf Stream, not the Gulf Current, which is the circulation. It's like a big bathtub. And when you look and do your homework on it, you'll notice that it has changed drastically since the Gulf oil spill, the BP thing. Drastically. So now in the Straits of Florida, down at Key West and Cuba, that's where the Gulf of Mexico dumps into the Atlantic. And the Gulf Stream used to go up along the coast of the Americas. And when it gets to the Outer Banks in North Carolina up there, it veers off. But it still has a tendency to go up towards the UK and Ireland, that area on the other side of the ocean. Now the Gulf Stream has moved more towards the middle of the Gulf. And so there are stagnations along the coastline. So the water has changed, the temperature has changed because of the different thermoclines. The garbage that has been stuck swirling around like in a bathtub, is slowly being fed into the Gulf Stream, into the Atlantic, which is now affecting these other things. So people say, oh, well, that would have dissipated years ago. No, because the Gulf of Mexico has the Straits of Florida. So this stuff has been circulating around and around and around and around in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico has an island of plastic that no one wants you to know about because it collects in the middle, just like out in the Pacific. It's just smaller. My brother, who was in the Navy years ago and was stationed in Pensacola, when they would take a trip to the Mediterranean and come back, they would have to go through the Straits of Florida. And he told me one time, he goes, Dave, he said, it's unbelievable. He said, when we get towards the coast of South Florida, in the Keys and sailing through the straits there, he said, there's all this garbage that just washes out of the Gulf. He said, it's just great big piles, great big islands of this. And that's been 25 or 30 years ago or more that he observed this thing. And so it's like, this is kind of common knowledge. But when you slow the Gulf of Mexico's stream itself down, that slows the Gulf Stream down, which is, like I say, it's supposed to be taken, it literally siphons the water out of the Gulf of Mexico in a swirling type vortex effect. And so now that all this stuff is in there, so all the beaches up along the side, there's dead animals, there's blah, blah, blah. Now, I can't vouch for the fishing, but I'm not sure I'd want to eat anything out of the Atlantic either, but just saying, because of this issue. Now, the weather patterns you can check on the GOES and the different satellites, and you can watch where the waves are, where the currents are, where the weird patterns are, and they're collecting around some of how the currents have changed. Okay, so um, okay, why does this matter? This is just more of an explanation. When you know there were several bottlenose dolphins down around Venice Beach, around Sarasota, Fort Myers, down there just yesterday, day before. It's like, okay, but this is why. There's stuff in the Gulf these poor things have to swim through, and all the different plastics that I've spoke about. Oh, and that was brought up again today. Oh my goodness, in a big way. There is another study out about the harms of plastic, ingesting plastic, that it's affecting the hormones of both men and women. But it's affecting women's hormones more than men. It's because all plastics, I can't believe they came out with this, report this last week saying all plastics, regardless of the kind, are releasing polymers into our foods. And they're giving warnings about, well, don't give kids under 12 too many canned foods because of the plastic lining in the cans. And I was like, that's my only nemesis right now. I have canned food that I'm not going to throw it out, but at the same point, I do understand that it's absorbing these dead gum polymers. So it's like now there's a big study out again about this. So it's like, I got off on a tangent a couple of weeks or so ago about the plastic thing, and here they're coming out nationally going, "Yep, it's true," and it doesn't matter what kind of plastic it is. Some off gas more than others. If it's made out of any kind of plastic, you're getting these polymers, and they are interrupting your hormones, your system, and they won't come out easily because they're a polymer. It won't dissolve. So once you get it in you and it gets into your tissues, it stays there. But oh, Crazy Dave last week, I off on my rant about plastics, and I'm gonna have to find that study. But I've heard it on two different news source type channels, and they're like, "Here we go again." They just come out with a new study, and it's like, why are people going back crap crack? Well, here's some more stuff. The plastics really are harming us. So it's like if you're wondering why you're feeling bad and arthritis and all this other kind of stuff, and I've told you, man, my arthritis is getting better because I've stopped using plastic. I pulled something out of my arm the other day. It wasn't a splinter. I don't know what it was, but it was some kind of little fibrous thing about yay long. And I feel that my body is trying to excrete these things. And there's been a lot of study about it, and there's certain things you can take that will help you to excrete these things, get them out of your system. But another huge paper about how plastics are harming us. Oh my goodness gracious. Okie dokie. So it's like, all right. Oh, and by the way, if I don't have my glasses on, but it says for view. I can't get to the chat room where I'm at right now. So if you've left any remarks, I cannot see them, but I love you. This was just supposed to be a little live little update for today. I had the wood elves come by and mow my 3 acre lot yard kind of thing and didn't even wake me up. They just did the mowing and whatever and left. And so now I have a yard full of cut grass and hay that I've been raking up for the chickens and for other things. But anyway, but I just want to give a little quick update now. And the next other thing that is real important, please, it's these UVC waves that are hitting us. It's very, very important. There are reports of children who are walking with their parent to the store 2 blocks southwest United States, literally having heat strokes because the UVC is going right it goes under the skin like a microwave. And basically it is in the microwave range. So if you're outside, you're not just getting the top of your skin burned, it's burning you from a layer below the skin and bubbling up. And it will literally dehydrate you before you know it. So if you're drinking distilled water in the sun, you're going to double your chances of a heat stroke. I'm warning you, be careful. And it doesn't matter about the clothing that you wear, because the UVC is going right through your clothing. If it will go into your skin, it's like a microwave and a potato. The outside of the potato is a little warm, but the inside, hot, hot, hot. That's what the UVC is doing. And it should never be above 7. And it's hitting 13 and 14. In some places, it's going off the chart. And that's like 1,000 miles north of me. So the closer you get to the North Pole, at Pacific Northwest, some of these people are getting UVC light at twice the normal rate that should be there. And the normal rate really shouldn't be 7, but 7 should be like the highest it will be. And it's hitting 13 and 14 on a regular basis. So, and it doesn't really matter about cloud cover too much. Depends on the cloud cover itself. So it's like, but at the same point, so we are getting microwaved from the universe. Now, in my discussions about anxiety, these UVC rays that we can't see are also affecting our brain. I mean, our brains are getting microwaved too. So inside the house, outside the house, it doesn't matter. Some of these things are hitting us regardless. That's very, very important for you to understand. But if you are outside or in a car or something like that, it's like, you know, you used to be able to leave the dog in the car and go into the 7-Eleven and come back out now. And if it took you 5 minutes in the store, that used to be acceptable. Not now. 5 minutes in the car with a dog is not the same 5 minutes it was 6 or 7 years ago. I go outside now and there's a cloud over my truck, but the truck's even hotter than the surrounding areas. It's because the UVC is heating up the metals, not from direct sun, from the sunlight, but from the frequency of the vibration. So things are heating up in unnatural ways, not from the direct sunlight, but from this weird wavy, just think microwave, okay? And it's coming from the universe. Now, if you live in a city and you're living around 4 and 5G, you're getting microwaved out the yin yang. And you need to seriously consider, what are my options? And if you live in an area with a lot of stuff and you can figure out another way to move or get away from it, or at least shield yourself, please do so, because it's having a collective, cumulative effect on all of us. Now, I live in a small area down here, and my ear ringing is actually a little quieter today. The last several days, it was driving me crazy. One ear, the other. Anyway, so I send out my love and I send out my prayers to all of you. I do. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to go out and check my chickens. I'm going to go pull weeds in the garden until it's too hot for me to do anything. But it's daylight and I feel much better than I did a couple of days ago. My head is much clearer. I'm hoping a lot of us are over some of this hump, because I've had enough of this being knocked out for days on end. I mean, it's the pits. So, with love, honor, I send you my love from my heart, soul, and my soul's heart. Creator, grant these folks the blessings that they desire, the blessings that they deserve. And may love and compassion and kindness be to the word of the day for all folks. So with that, I say adios for now. I might be back on later on this evening. We'll see how it goes. But in any event, I love you all and be safe.